How was the creative process for Subject 17?
The creative process. Well, it actually started quite some time ago after our previous release, Aurora Borealis, which we released in 2018. And Subject 17, it's a concept album, like the previous two albums. So what we usually do is, well, we just sit together and exchange some ideas on, well, does anyone have a good concept or story or something? And I think it was at the end of 2018 that we came up with the story. And what we usually do is that I write the majority of the songs, or at least the basic of the song. So and then we fine tune it in the rehearsal room. And usually we try to keep everything at the same level. So what I mean with that is all songs are written at first. Then all songs, they level up to a certain point when they are ready for, let's say, vocals. Then they level up all songs. It's all in the same phase. But this time we decided to take one track at first and well, just push it a bit forward. So we wrote the song, wrote the lyrics, recorded, and released it. So the first song, the first single, was actually released in December of 2019 already. So it was a bit of a different process we usually do. Yeah, but I think in the end it paid off, especially with the pandemic and all, which well, it delayed some planning wise for us. I mean, we weren't allowed to go to the rehearsal place for a long time, so it was good that we decided to change our planning for that matter.
I wanted to know, one of my favorite tracks on the album is God Mode. I wanted to know if you could speak on that song.
God Mode. Well, yeah, God Mode. It's well, we're halfway on the album with God Mode. And well, obviously you need to know a little bit about the story. So we have a young ambitious doctor, early 1900s, the rise of modern medicine, and he is very ambitious, but he's also a bit well, let's just say he's a bit full of himself. He thinks very high of himself. He considers himself to be better than his patients, or his subjects, as we like to call it. So God Mode is halfway through the album. The doctor, he gets infected in the first part of the album with an unknown virus, and he tries to cure it with medicine that were known in that time period. He doesn't succeed, so he resorts to more alternative methods like electrification, amputation, that kind of stuff. And God Mode is actually it's the song where he has started a bit more wicked kind of experiments, and where he is still convinced of his own superiority. But he slowly starts to understand that if he can't find a cure, it will kill him. And so his whole idea, his whole God Mode state that he is in, is described in that particular song. And it's a very fast and furious song. If we look at BPM wise, it's the fastest song on the album, and it's also one of my personal favorites. Yeah.
And speaking of the album musically, what was the hardest track for you guys to lay down?
Oof. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I mean, sometimes you just have a specific part. As for me, when I'm recording vocals, I record everything. By the way, here in what you can see right now, this is my home studio. So I record everything from here. This is where the magic happens. Um, Sometimes you have a specific point in a song with well, let's say our bass player, and he's played the part well hundreds and hundreds of times, but just he can't seem to get it at that time. So
Mhm.
what do I usually do then? For me as a producer, I just say, well, screw it, let it be, and we're going to go to the next song, and later we will circle back to this specific point. Because I've
Sure.
also learned for myself, when I start recording, I know when I'm well, when my hands not when they're a bit cold, I can play specific guitar parts, with the downstroke. I can play them very easily. But it's very strange when I get warm. I go more to an alternate picking kind of style. Um, so I have to be very careful what part to record when. And as for what was the most difficult track to record, I would say that was the trick, because when we first recorded it, there were some technical difficulties, and I couldn't fix it, so that resulted in us having to record all the guitar tracks again. So we recorded the entire song twice. So well, that was a bit of a bummer, but well, I was glad that I found out about the technical difficulties at that time, and so we didn't have to re-record the entire album. That would have been
Sure.
really crappy. Yeah.
And these songs have been with you for a while. Um, as we spoke of, you've been working on for quite some time.
Yep.
Um, in that process, were there quite a few tracks that didn't make the cut for the
Um, to be honest, no. Not when recording. Um, when you're making a concept album, it's always a bit. I mean, at first you have like the basic of the story, so you
album?
know where you're going to start, you know where you're going to end, and you know what's going to be happening in the middle. So what I usually do is I break down the full story into different parts, and then I write down some keywords for every part. So let's say the first track of an album, it's in my opinion, everything what I say is in my opinion about the music. But I think the first track, it should always be a bit of an open track, so that the listener um, knows what he can expect of the rest of the album. But in my opinion, it should always be a bit of a simple yet effective song, a perfect single, also in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So then you know that song is going to be it's going to be pretty basic. It's going to be a bit up tempo because well, um, you want to make sure that your listeners get into the right vibe and all. Then
Right.
for the second song, you're like, well, this one can be perhaps a bit more groovy because story-wise, well, we are going to tell this and that, so we need a bit more slow-paced or something. Then for the third track, well, this is where shit hits the fan, so this
Right.
one's going to be a real fast-paced banger, you know. So that's basically when you well how we um, decide what kind of song a specific song on the album is going to be. And the difficult part is basically the last piece of the puzzle. Um, when I start writing I usually know, oh well, this kind of riffing, it's going to be perfect for, let's say, track number 4, or or
Mm.
or this is going to be more heavy. Where do I need heavy? I need heavy in number 7. Okay, so this is going to be towards number 7. Usually, in the end, there is always that one track that that's a bit more difficult to write, because you're out of options. If you're going into your writing mode, and let's say I write a very fast riff, like a Slayer kind of riff,
Sure.
but it doesn't need a Slayer kind of riff. Maybe it needs more of a, well, I don't know, a Black Sabbath thing, you know. Then it's not going to fit. So usually I have about, well, I think about maybe 2 or sometimes 3 unfinished songs that I didn't like where they were heading. So I just park that whole idea, put it on the side, and just start over for that particular last piece. But the fun thing is, and not a lot of people know this, the the last track of this album was actually a track that was written during the Aurora Borealis um, album sequence.
Wow.
I did change it up a little bit, but it was just too good not to use it. So yeah, that's basically what happens then.
I also wanted to ask you about the album artwork and the artist that was involved.
The album artwork was made by my wife, and also a guitar player in the band, Debbie. So we do everything ourselves.
That's amazing. Great piece
Yeah,
of work.
yeah. Also, our website. She also makes the website, all the artwork, all the visuals, all that kind of stuff. So we do everything ourselves. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if you could speak on your musical development. At what age did you begin?
Oh, for me personally, you mean?
Yes.
Oh wow. I didn't expect that. Let's see. Well, when I was younger, I didn't care all that much about music. But when I went to, I don't know how you call it over there in the US. When you're about 12, 13 years old, to what school do you go to? Is that middle school?
Yes.
Okay. So when I went there, I think I was like 12 years old. I made some new friends because it was a new school, and one of them was already very much into bands such as AC/DC and Aerosmith. And he gave me a very old cassette tape. Remember those? Huh?
Oh, yes.
With with a couple of songs of those bands on it, and I was listening to them, and I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing." So I started listening to those kind of bands. Then I started to listen to old Iron Maiden, old Metallica. So in my opinion, the good Metallica. So the first 4 albums. And I think I was about 14 or 15 when I asked my parents, well, I want to start playing guitar. So I was kind of late. But yeah, about the time I started playing, first I played a year on a Spanish acoustic guitar, which I borrowed from my uncle, which I still have to this day. So I have to return
Wow.
it at some point, I guess. And then after a year, I got my first electrical guitar. You can see it in the back over there. This one, the
I don't have
Flying
you on.
V.
I don't
Oh,
have
you
you
don't have
on.
me on screen.
No.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that was my first electrical guitar. When I think I was 15 when I got it. Yeah, about that. So and then I got into contact more with bands such as Children of Bodom, Norther, Dark Tranquility, Arch Enemy, Amon Amarth. But it was all, I think That was a couple of years later. Cradle of Filth, obviously. Cradle of Filth. How can I forget Cradle of Filth? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And those kind of bands, like early 90s, no, late 90s, early 2000s, really shaped my musical taste and my musical influence. Yeah.
And speaking of your background, I wanted to ask you, do you feel has been the best advice that has been given to you along your musical journey?
Huh. Best advice I got. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if it's something that someone told me, but the best advice I would consider is make the music that you want to make. Make the music that you want to create. For example, I consider myself our biggest fan. I get a lot of energy and of listening to our own music. Sometimes I read articles about bands who have just recorded an album, and they say, "Well, I haven't heard the full album," or
Right.
when they look back on their own discography, they say, "Well, I haven't heard that album in years," and I'm like, "What? How is that even possible?" So I don't know if they really enjoy what they are doing. So yeah, I think that's about it.
And when you're not working on music, what are some things you like to do to unwind? Like, let's say you're having a bad moment day in the studio, and
Mhm.
you need to, clear the head. What are
Okay.
some things you like to do to accomplish that?
Um. For me, that's well, it can be two things. One is when at the moment it just doesn't work. I tend to play some fighter video games. Just fire up the console and just kick the living crap out of of your opponent. You know. So that's one thing I enjoy. But what I also enjoy to do much is firing up the barbecue. But that's not really studio related. It's more just in general, just an
Sure.
something to unwind. Yeah.
And what's the best way to get merchandising a physical copy of the album?
The best way is to head over to our website www.noxaeterna.nl. There you can order our albums. We also have some shirts, some patches. So yeah, that's a good way to get in touch. We don't have a record label. Like I said, we do everything ourselves, so there's no middleman in between. Every order I handle personally, so you will get a personal email from me with the confirmation and all that kind of stuff. So, but you can also just head over to our Facebook, our Instagram, or just look us up on Spotify, Apple Music. We are all over the place.
And I also wanted to ask you, if you could tell me how the name came about for the band.
Oh, that's also quite an interesting one, I think, because Nox Aeterna, it is Latin for eternal night, and with that name, you might think of as darkness, black metal, or gothic, or something
Right.
like that. But for us, it's more when we kind of came up with it, and it was like I don't know, somewhere over 20 years ago. So you have to consider that we were all in our early 20s, and we partied a lot. And when do you party? At night. And you just want to have that feeling last forever at night.
Mm.
So basically, that's where it came from. And looking back to it now, I think a way to interpret it also is during the day everything's hectic and there's just stuff going on everywhere. But
Sure.
at night it's calm. So that's also something I like. It's just a different environment, you know. But the partying
Absolutely.
thing that's where it originally came from. Yeah.
And what's next on the plate for the band?
Well, we've talked about this because well, we just did um, 3 concept albums in about 8 years, and working on a concept album, yes, it's a lot of fun to work on it, but it's also a limitation because, for example, lyric-wise, you can't go outside of your story, what you're writing. So, for example, this
Sure.
time we wrote something about a doctor in um, early 1900s, and you can't just throw in some I don't know some Star Wars science fiction theme in there at the same time. So basically, that's limiting your creative outlet. Um, Also, production-wise, I do all the recording, I do all the mixing, all the mastering, the entire process. But when we start working on it, at first, so im- imagine this: when we started recording our first single back in 2019, yeah, I had to think about how the album a couple of years later was going to sound. So which amplifiers we were going to use, which techniques and all. And I needed to apply that to songs that hadn't even been written yet. So
Sure.
that can be a bit tricky. So production wise, well, you're always going to be working with the same setup because you want to have the same well
Like
guitar tone.
cohesiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And um, if you're not doing a concept album, but more focusing on singles, what we're going to be doing, well, we can change a lot of those little details, keep it interesting for ourselves. Um, so yeah, that's what we're going to be focusing on for the next couple of I don't know years, I think. Um, just take small projects. Um, Try some stuff out in the studio, maybe some guest musicians, maybe some crazy remixes or something. I don't know. I just don't know it yet. But we did say that we're not going to be focusing on making an album at this point.
And getting back to the concept idea, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, has the thought or the idea or the notion to make a cinematic accompaniment to the album, was that something that was considered?
Um, when we were writing the stories, not so much. However, especially when I'm looking at the first concept album we did. It was the Desperation Deal in 2015. On our website, I have a very detailed story written out. So perhaps if there are listeners who are interested, check out the album, the music, and then head over to our website and read the full story with it. It's a real good addition to how you're experiencing the music. But that particular story, I consider it the best story that we uh, wrote when it comes to perhaps making a movie or um, a long video clip or something of it, because it's very well. I just think it suits best when looking at the 3 stories that we have written so far. Yeah. But there are no yeah, there might be some ideas concerning it, but there are no actual plans yet for it.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be?
I think thank you all so much for your continued support over the last 20 years. It's been one hell of a ride, and I hope we can continue it with your continued support. And just see where we're going. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this album is a testament to the greatness of this band. You've now done 3 of these, and this album is totally immersive. There's no 2 ways about it. And I hate to see right now we're living in a time where attention spans are short, and people don't want to dedicate a lot of time to anything, but this is one definitely worth the time, and it's great cover to cover.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate it.
I want to thank you for taking time to speak with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, my friend.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure speaking with you too. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you, and you have a great day.
Same to you, man. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.